Suffering. Chapter 1. Human lot is a hard one. Suffering is a universal experience. It has many facets as its synonyms like sorrow, affliction, anguish, tribulation, woe, distress, trial, hurt, grief, pain, sore, discomfort. The psalmist describes human life thus: 70 years is all we have, 80 years if we are strong. Yet all they bring us is trouble and sorrow. Life is soon over and we are gone. Why suffering? People often ask the question, why is there suffering in the world? There is a variety of answers to this question, but none of them seem to solve the problem. Greek mythology has a tale explaining the origin of our suffering. The tale says that in the beginning there was no grief in the world. Then Zeus sent to earth the young girl Pandora with this instruction: you are happy, beautiful, rich with many gifts, and generous. If you want to be always happy and healthy, take with you this box and take care never to open it. Pandora left the celestial kingdom for the earth. As she happily carried the mysterious box, the desire to open it was growing in her mind day by day. She was asking herself, what does it contain? Why such a mystery? Thus, Pandora, joyful and pretty, eventually yielded to curiosity to open the box that held all the sufferings we meet in this world. These left free are still depriving us of our happiness. Whether it be physicians, scientists, psychotherapists also seem to be baffled by the complexity of suffering which goes beyond the recognizable bodily symptoms and the accessible remedies. Philosophers and theologians have been telling us that suffering is not a problem that can be logically solved and rationally explained. Despite all the medical attempts to provide relief, the fact still remains that suffering is endured by a large number of people. As a famous physician writes, it is a fundamental fact in the field of pain that some patients will suffer for the rest of their lives. In such cases, the most effective therapy may be to teach them to live with their pain and to carry out productive lives in spite of it. A person who truly believes in a personal God and an afterlife and who lives in accordance with this belief is likely to learn to live with pain. Emotional causes of suffering. Each man has an inclination which, if they are not kept in control, can become a tenacious enemy of the psyche, destroying health and lead to interpersonal difficulties. These inclinations assume different forms of the human selfishness. For example, we have pride, greed, envy, lust, anger, gluttony, and sloth. Pride, I want to outrank you and surpass you in every way. Greed will say, I want more possessions and don't try to stop me. Envy will say, I want what you have. Lust will say, I want more sex. Anger will say, I want my own way. Gluttony will say, I want more to eat, more to drink, more to shoot up. Sloth will say, I want to be left alone, don't bother me. Our emotions have also been described in terms of animals. In each human heart, Ambrose Bierce wrote in the Devil's Dictionary, are a tiger, a pig, an ass, and a nightingale. Thus, Dr. D. G. Kale also says each of us has a powerful tiger of ferocity, a pig of envy and greed, an ass of cowardice, folly, and fear, and a nightingale whose beautiful song of love is compensation for the sorrow and the suffering. And what a snarling, grunting, braying, and twittering they make. There's no expelling the animals completely, although some have been known to substitute a lamb for the pig and a horse for the ass. There's much to admire about the nightingale and the tiger when they are under control. Organic causes of suffering. Don't blame automatically yourself for all the things you suffer. Some of our healing depends upon knowing that usually it is not our fault when tragedy strikes or when others hurt us. However, we must not take the matter lightly. Dr. Franklin Ebog maintains that the third of all the cases of illness in hospitals are clearly organic in nature and onset. One third are a combination emotional and organic, and one third are clearly emotional. Dr. Flanders Dunbar, the author of The Mind and Body, says not a question of whether an illness is physical or emotional, but how much of each. Every thoughtful person realizes the doctors are right when they say that resentment, hate, grudges, ill will, fear, jealousy are attributes which contribute and produce ill health. Little headaches and little heartaches, little griefs of every day, little trials and vexation, how they throng upon our way. One great cross, immense and heavy, so it seems to our weak will, might be borne with the resignation, but these may little ones kill. Yet all life is formed of small things, little leaves make up the trees. Many tiny drops of water blending make the mighty seas. Let us then not by impatience mar the beauty of the whole, but for the love of the Lord bear all in silence of our souls. asking Him for grace sufficient to sustain us through each loss and to treasure each small suffering as a splinter from His cross. Chapter 2: When Suffering Strikes. One of the greatest challenges is how we react and adjust to things that cause us suffering. It is important to see suffering aright, to receive it wisely, and to bear it manly and bravely. Most people panic when trouble happens, but then and by they learn to take control of the situation to adjust themselves in a creative manner. The book of Proverbs says, "The wound heals slowly, time heals all sorrows." Dr. Vincent asks, why are the days when nothing seems to go right? What are the reasons for these periodic tendency for things to go wrong? He wisely tries to give an answer. There are many conditions, of course, there can be factors. We may be below par, tired, or we are irritated, or we have let ourselves get disorganized so that inefficiency takes over. Also, there could be another reason: we feel plagued by a contrary and perverse force. In nature, there are cycles in the seasons, in the winds, in the rise and fall of the tides. There are cycles in our physical vitality, periods when we are at our low ebb, then at other times. There are also occasions when we are in high and excited spirit and times when we are depressed. This is normal. Apparently, it will not do for the human body to be always in the same level. Seemingly, this would add stress. There has to be a normal give and take, up and down. Ebb and flow. Do not be too concerned if you are a bit depressed sometimes, because we all experience the alternating of normal acceleration and depression. In those periods, normal the downswing of the cycle, there are times when things just elude us, when we can't seem to be do things right, when things go wrong. Troubles and pebbles. Dr. Arti tells us that troubles are pebbles, and he narrates a story. A woman was pouring out her troubles, an endless stream of moans and weens, when the social worker picked a small pebble and held it up to her. In the brief silence that followed, the social worker said, "Look at this pebble, see how tiny it is." Then he held it right in front of the woman's eye and said, "Now the pebble fills your vision and blocks the entire world." Finally, he threw the pebble on the ground and asked the woman to stamp on it. It was crushed into powder. The wailing woman understood that troubles are like pebbles. Looked at objectively, there are challenges we can meet and conquer, but out of perspective, they assume gigantic proportions that cause us to fret and fear. Don't be stoic. One way of bearing the pain and discomfort without complaining is a stoic way. The stoic doesn't admit that he is hurt. The stoic says to himself, "I am okay," and tells others, "Big boys and girls don't cry." The stoic tries to master suffering. He anesthetizes himself, he desensitizes himself, and by becoming insensitive to pain, he also becomes insensitive to the pain of others. A certain asceticism is good. Of course, some trouble must only be treated with contempt. Train yourself to accept suffering daily, so that you may be ready to accept it without a shipwreck. That's sane. That's a healthy preventive moral hygiene. Besides, the stoic attitude prevents us from recognizing the healthy message that suffering brings along. Martin Padovani writes that the more we are in touch with reality and cope with it, no matter how painful it may be, the better mental and emotional well being we enjoy. Keep calm. When trouble strikes, school yourself to keep calm. Keep your anger under control. Cool down your irritation. Remember that you are made for happiness and it should be a dream of your heart. You are not in the wrong path to seek comfort, but you are wrong not to seek it even when you are under stress. Make positive acts of relaxation. That's the great point. Redefine your problem. Very often, the problem that you are trying to solve defines your solution until you restructure it by asking a different set of questions. Try to find a new and better way to solve the problem. Above all, keep calm and hopeful. A wise man tells of his experience. "I learn as the years roll onward, and I leave the past behind. That are many flowers I longed for had a hidden thorn of pain, and many a rugged bypath led to fields and ripened grain." Remember, prayer may not change the things for you, but it for sure changes you for things. If we weren't meant to keep starting, would God have granted us money? Frank L. Stanton wrote a poem called "Keep a Going," and to do that is to keep joy and perseverance even among daily difficulties. If you strike a thorn or rose, keep a going. If it hails or if it snow, keep a going. Tain't no use to sit and vain. When the fish aren't on your line, bait your hook and keep a trying, keep a going. When the weather kills your crop, keep a going. Though it's work to reach the top, keep a going. Suppose you're out every dime, Getting broke ain't any crime. Tell the world you're feeling prime, keep her going. When it looks like all it up, keep her going. Drain the sweetness from the cup, keep her going. See the wild birds on the wing, hear the bells as sweetly ring. When you feel like singing, sing, keep her going. Take care of your mental health. Among the physical law, entropy is one of the most important. This law affirms that all isolated systems are bound to wear out if new energy is not infused in them. The principle of entropy is valid also for man's health, both physical and mental, emotional. We do not take care of our health, it fades away. We do not enrich our values of love, hope, joy, and self esteem if we do not affirm our family life. If we do not continuously keep ruining our interior life. If we do not feed ourselves rather well, physically, intellectually, psychologically, and spiritually, we end up rusting away by wearing down. Health has to do with the quality of life, the way we think, feel, and behave. In trying to understand health, we must take into account the possibilities we have or can have to develop ourselves as persons, realizing that how one feels is largely determined by one's own choices. Health is trying to elevate what is possible, including the pain of suffering and loss, and the numerous limitations of every kind to which we are subject. Health is a state in which a person has a correct relationship to self, to God, and to the environment. But most of all, health must take into account our deepest hopes and aspirations. Thus, health has to do with the whole person, one's body, mind, and psyche. To live fully, the different forces within us must be integrated in a harmonious whole and be concerned with the mental hygiene. Dr. D.B. Klein gives a quite satisfactory description of mental hygiene. He writes, mental hygiene endeavors to aid people to ward off trouble as well as to furnish ways of handling trouble in an intelligent fashion when it cannot be warded off. Characteristics of sound mental health. According to the National Association of Mental Health US, people with sound mental have the following characteristic. They have not ballowed over by their own emotions, by their fears, anger, love, jealousy, guilt, or worries. They can take life's disappointments in their stride. They have a tolerant, easygoing attitude towards themselves as well as others and can laugh at themselves. They neither underestimate nor overestimate their own abilities. They can accept their own shortcomings. They have self respect. They feel able to deal with most suitable situations that come their way. They get satisfaction from the simple everyday pleasure. They're able to give love and to consider the interests of others. They have personal relationships that are satisfying and lasting. They expect to like and trust others and take it for granted that others will like and trust them. They do not push people around, nor do they allow themselves to be pushed around. They can feel that they are part of a group. They feel a sense of responsibility to their neighbors and fellow men. They do something about their own problems as they arise. They accept the responsibilities gladly. They shape their environment whenever it is possible. They adjust to it whenever necessary. They plan ahead but do not fear the future. They welcome new experiences, new ideas, and they make use of their natural capacities. They set realistic goals for themselves. They're able to think for themselves and make their own decisions. They put their best effort into what they do and get satisfaction out of doing it. Stress is a common dimension of wellness which includes the ability to handle the stresses that inevitably occur in one's life. At one time or another, we all deal with stress producing events. What is not understood is that stress can result from positive events as well as negative ones. Doctors Thomas Holmes and Masada Monoru developed an instrument called as the life change scale. They have identified the events of various value counts which contribute to human stress. We have adapted it into Indian context and arranged it according to the decreasing value count. Death of a spouse, divorce, marital separation from maid, detention in a jail or other institution, death of a close family member, major personal injury or illness, marriage, being fired at work, marital reconciliation with maid, retirement from work, major change in the health or behavior of a family member, pregnancy, sex difficulties, gaining a new family member, major business readjustment, major change in financial state, death of a close friend, son or daughter leaving home, trouble with in-laws, changing to different line of work, taking out a mortgage or a loan, major change in responsibilities at work, outstanding personal achievement, trouble with the boss, why beginning or ceasing work outside the home, beginning or ceasing formal schooling, change in resident, revision of personal habits, major change in social activities, major change in eating habits, minor violations of the law, dealing with stress. Walt Sinefer in his text Stress, Distress and Growth suggests the following ways of dealing with stress. Take time for relaxation. This may involve a walk in the woods, visiting a museum, reading a book, or listening to music. Move through the day slowly. Take time to experience the beauty of the environment. Allow time for the unexpected. This often means scheduling fewer tasks so the person can deal with such events when they occur. Leave early enough so that there is no need to rush to get to a destination. Select activity challenges that are meaningful so there is an avoidance of the time and energy consumption. Slow the pace of talking, walking, eating, and breathing. Find time each day to exercise. Find a good fit between one's personal needs and the demands of the environment, such as job, family, friends, neighbors, and household duties. Become more aware of the stresses in your environment. The above scale will assist in the task. Know your values, your priorities, and your limits.